for the season starts on Saturday as the 3-4 Knights look to avenge their loss against Oklahoma against the West Virginia Mountaineers. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, as always, a quick word from our sponsors, BetOnline. The last of the major pro sports leagues kicks off this week, and BetOnline is your top spot for all your NBA action this season. With MLB postseason, NFL, and college football and NHL in full swing, BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. Get everything NBA at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access for every sport, anytime. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use promo code BELIEVE to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Listen, before we get into it, it's NBA season. Obviously, we're recording this on Wednesday. Orlando Magic tip off tonight against the Houston Rockets. So we're both decked out in Magic gear. I get it's a UCF pod, but we are both Magic fans. I'm a lifelong Magic fan. I've got the retro, probably one of the nicest things. Retro's like back in, obviously, the old time stuff. You know, I've had this in my closet, and I mean, I wore this on the last pod, but 35th season for the Magic seems like it's going to be a good one. I can't remember the last time I was this excited for a season. So really pumped for that. Nick, obviously, you know, you're a Magic fan, but you also weren't on the last pod. So we welcome you back after. Listen, let's call it like it is. Nobody and their mother's mother anticipated the game that we just witnessed on Saturday. It sucked. I had to do it by myself, but it is what it is. What a game. And has your opinion changed on this team at all? And welcome to the pod.
Yes, it's good to be back after a 1-week hiatus. Full disclosure, I spent my Saturday up in Tallahassee going to Florida State Duke. My wife's a Duke fan, so she wanted to go to that game. And so we took in Doak Campbell Stadium on a Saturday night, big time college football game. It was great, but I was out and about during the day, you know, and I couldn't check into my hotel until 3. And I got back and immediately I turned on the UCF game, and I hadn't looked at anything, by the way. Had not looked at a single thing. And UCF was winning 23-17 at that time. And I'm like, what did I miss? What did I miss? I thought by this time we would be getting close to, you know, down by 3 scores or something and just like get this over with, whatever. But they were winning that game in the fourth quarter, which was good to see. And I watched the end of the fourth quarter there and then went back and watched parts of the rest of the game. But, you know, has my opinion changed? You know, when games like this happen, and in college football, it's so week to week and anybody can beat anybody. We know this. And UCF, a 2-point loss to Oklahoma on the road. Yes, it's good. You know, it's definitely a positive. It's a trend in the right direction. But for me, when stuff like this happens, it's all about the follow-up. And that's kind of what I'm kind of looking forward to seeing right now, is getting back home against a team that is struggling right now. And what's the follow-up going to be? Because if you go out there and you lose to West Virginia at home and you slip to, you know, a 5-game losing streak, then, you know, how much does it matter? You know, not to diminish what happened there, but, you know, I watched a lot of teams on the ropes this weekend. I watched Washington, a team that has national championship aspirations. They needed a very fortunate pass interference call late in the game and a pick 6 to fend off Arizona State, who had 1 win. So, you know, this stuff happened. USF and Alabama, another good example there. This stuff happens around college football, and for me, it's all about what the follow-up is going to be. So it was enjoyable for a week. I hate that it came down and it ended the way it did. I know everybody's talked to death about that 2-point call. Again, it's one of those things where if it works out, what a great play call. So innovative. Way to go for it. And when it doesn't work out like it did, it's awful play call. Why would you call that in situation? I mean, all I'll say about it is we've tried this whole, whether it's RJ Harvey or in this case, Xavier Townsend, we've tried, you know, anybody but the quarterback throwing the ball this year. To my knowledge, I can't remember one time they completed the pass. I don't think in that moment with a chance to tie that game and send it to overtime, that was the best moment for it. I heard what Darren Hinshaw said after the game about, you know, it was there, and if Xavier throws it, he didn't do it for whatever reason. I don't know. it is what it is, but a 2-point loss on the road against Oklahoma, given what we were expecting, they played hard. I think that's the big thing is there's no quit in the team. I think you see that nobody's lost. The coaching staff hasn't lost these players amid a losing streak. They're still fighting hard. And that's what you want to see. But again, moving forward, I want to see what the follow-up is to that game.
Yeah, the follow-up is the most important, and you're right. I mean, the 2-point play was the talk amongst college football, UCF fans, everyone alike. And though I said, and I went on 96.9 the game in the zone with Brandon Kravitz, and Brandon did not agree with me. I said that I understand the call. I didn't hate it as much as some did. I don't agree with it. I mean, I wouldn't have called it, but I also see both sides of the coin, like you said, right? In college football, if it works, you're praised. If it doesn't, you're the worst coach. And again, it was the same thing. I on Twitter, right? UCF loses by 2, and it's this coaching staff sucks. This is an awful team, like blah, 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 blah. Not as much as we usually see, but there were still multiple tweets that I saw. But guess what? If we got blown out by 40, like most of us anticipated,
right,
you're still saying the same stuff. So it's like, for me, I'll take a 2-point conversion loss that nobody agrees with or not a lot of people like over a 40-point loss, which there's a 10% part of the fan base that's there. That is there.
I just think for me, like, John Rice Plumlee on that drive alone made some big time throws. You think at the play over the middle of the field, I think it was 4th down, that he made to Randy Pittman to extend that drive. And then the throws he made in the red zone. I just thought the way he was throwing it there, he seemingly had the hot hand. He got you back into that game there to give you a chance to go to overtime. I would have liked to have seen the ball have been in your best player's hand. That's just me. Now, I know he was limited from a moving standpoint, as we sort of expected. And so maybe that limits a little bit your creativity down there of what you can do. But again, you got good skill players. Javon Baker had a good game. Randy Pittman was having a good game at that moment. You had Kobe, you had Townsend. I think there's enough talent on there that you don't have to get super crazy with that play call in that moment. But it is what it is. You move on. There's no shame in losing by 2 on the road to Oklahoma, especially when you were winning that game, for a large stretch of it. I think we would take that as UCF fans.
Oh, 100%. And before we move on, I will say, I do have a little bit of a theory. I do think that the John Rice, like, obviously we know, like, there was a lot of players that were not really feeling good before the game. The IVs, John Rice got 4 IVs, and the fact that he already had the knee injury. And we said, like, ultimately we knew his running capabilities were going to be very limited. And we saw that very early on and throughout the game. He stayed mostly in the pocket. He ran a couple times. Obviously, the one touchdown throw to Javon where he acted like he was going to run and toss it to him, that was a great play design. I will say, John Rice did run it in for a touchdown. That one time. It was on like the 1-2 yard line. I guarantee you that was there. And remember, UCF like tried to get in 2 or 3 times and couldn't get it. And Oklahoma is really good in that red zone, 1 to 2 yard goal line area. I think that would have been the play if they hadn't used it. If they hadn't used it, 2 quarters before. But unfortunately, you use it and you have to go to another backup option, which was this. So, it could have worked. I understand what Coach Hinshaw saw because I even texted you after the game and I said he was open. If the ball got thrown perfect and he was ready to throw it, Javon Baker was open in the back of the end zone. But again, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's what matters this week, what happens this week. Yeah. Because you're going on a 5-game skid or you're potentially going to be on a 5-game skid. You're hoping you can go on a 5-game win streak here in the next 5 weeks to close out your season.
Yeah, and let me say this too, the other nugget about that game before we move on to West Virginia, but I definitely want to get it in because I don't think you've talked about it either because it came out on Monday, and this has to do with Hinshaw, and the comments he had on the whole Javon Baker thing, the peace sign or
Me
whatever.
and you both agree on this, I think.
Yeah.
We both agree on this.
The peace sign or whatever he did when he was running for that touchdown before the half ended, the kiss, there you go. And Darren Henshaw seemed a bit agitated by it. I know Brent Venables was, of course he was, but Darren Henshaw's comments the other day and saying that it's not who we are and it's an embarrassment to our program and we're going to deal with it. And bottom line is don't do it again. I don't like the verbiage there at all.
No.
At all. You can disagree with what Javon Baker did in that moment all you want, and that's fine. But embarrassment to the program, let's back off a little bit. That was a very, very minor thing, I think. I know it's the NFL's different, obviously, but how many times have we used to see Tyreek Hill do the peace sign when he's running into the end zone, to other players? Like, that just stuff kind of happens. And I understand, if you get a penalty there, it probably wipes off the touchdown. And that's the risk, I guess, that you run by doing something like that. It didn't happen. I don't know how much more I have to add on it. I just think embarrassment to the program is a bit strong for something like that. Like, if you get into a situation where you lose your composure and there's some shoving on the field and you throw a swing at somebody's helmet, which is stupid, and then you knock yourself out of the game. Okay, I can see if you want to bring out the embarrassment to the program, embarrassment for yourself, if you want to be harsh like that. I got no problem with that. But for just a little bit of a kiss running into the end zone, embarrassment to the program is not the words I would have used to describe that. I did not like that whatsoever from Darren Henshaw.
I agree. Yeah, the verbiage there was a little too much. I think how Gus put it, obviously, was a little bit more eloquent, saying that, listen, ultimately getting that penalty in the end zone cost us 3 points. Now, granted, again, the defense could have stopped them. A lot of stuff could have happened, but he said ultimately we had to kick from the 20-yard line, so that gave a little bit of extra yardage. So we just got to be smarter. We just got to be more smart. I don't like the penalty there. It was the same. It was Javon and Kobe celebration they do anytime either of them score a touchdown. So again, that was just the refs getting involved when I don't think they needed to. But yeah, I get making sure that the players are disciplined because, yes, that would have wiped out the touchdown, the kiss penalty, if they did throw that flag. At the same time, though, to be honest, your players on a 3-game skid, they're showing a little bit of heart here. They're showing a little bit of moxie. And to go say it's an embarrassment, it's like, dude, we're playing toe-to-toe with the number 6 team in the country. We're showing fight here. Let us do a little bit of, show our personalities a little bit.
And what benefit do you get from saying that out into the public?
Not a benefit.
If you want to pull Javon Baker aside, which I'm sure he did before he made that comment in the public, okay, that's fine. It's your team. You're the coach. Deal with it how you want to deal with it in-house. But what good is it to go and say that in the public? If you want to say, if you would have just left it as, I talked to him, he understands what happened, and, we hope that doesn't happen again or it won't happen again. Whatever, that's fine. It's just the whole embarrassment to the program, bottom line. I don't want to harp on it too much, but I just wanted to get that in there. Just not what I would have done if I was Darren Henshaw in that moment.
I would think a lot of UCF fans probably agree with that sentiment.
A little bit.
And hopefully it doesn't affect, again, because that one little thing can affect a lot of things. That one comment can affect a lot. It could affect morale. It could affect recruiting. Because if I'm a player and I look at that, I might think what Javon did was cool. Or that, hey, listen, coaches let them have a little bit of fun. Now that they know it's an embarrassment to the program, if I'm a receiver, it's like, yikes, what am I going into? Now, granted, UCF hasn't had any problems. They have 4 receivers committed to the 24 class and potentially one more coming. So, they'll be all right. But, yeah, I agree. Let's go to the game after talking about, Oklahoma for 15 minutes, which, listen, for what it's worth, it was one of the biggest games in UCF history when it comes down to, I think UCF has only played a top 10 team in the country 22 times in their history or something to that nature. So, big time game. You take the loss, but I think you learn a lot of things about your team that you can take on to this week. And I think it gives the team a little bit of confidence, right? You're playing a team in West Virginia who, listen, let's keep it real here, Nick. We were talking about West Virginia early in the year as being the worst team in the Big 12. Their coach, we said, was going to be fired within the first 4 weeks. They had nobody good on their team, and they've really proven everybody wrong. Now, you say, I know we mentioned, they've struggled the last couple weeks. They're coming off of 2 L's, but let's keep it 100. I mean, against Houston, they lose, 41-39 on a ridiculous Hail Mary. So they should have won that game. And then against Oklahoma State, granted, I give them credit. Oklahoma State just ran the ball all over West Virginia. Gordon is a beast. And, if you're UCF, you're looking at the schedule like not really wanting to play Oklahoma State too much. But to their credit, I mean, their losses come from Penn State, which was in week 1. Obviously, besides that, they beat Texas Tech and TCU. Obviously, Pitt is the worst team in the ACC, so I'm not really going there. But all in all, Nick, I mean, give them credit. They've played really well this year, and it's not an easy, again, in the Big 12, you don't get an easy off week. You're not getting an easy team that we were all going to expect the week after Oklahoma. You're getting a tough West Virginia team that's coming off 2 losses, and UCF's off 3 losses, looking to bounce back. Yeah,
and you got 2 teams that we're getting to this point of the season that are going to be desperate because they're both trying to get to bowl eligibility as well. You look at West Virginia, definitely overexceeded expectations in the first half of the season. In the wacky nature of the Big 12, there was a time where you might have been saying, oh, they're a top 5 team in the Big 12. And then, you lose kind of a wonky game there against Houston on the Hail Mary. I mean, just that kind of stuff happens in college football from time to time. But then, again, the follow-up to Oklahoma or for West Virginia is, okay, how do you rebound from that? And what happened was a really good running back, one of the best in the nation. In fact, I don't know if there's anybody in the nation playing better right now than him at the position. And Ollie Gordon just runs all over you, and you give up, 48 points at home to Oklahoma State. And I think that's the big thing here. You look at West Virginia, the last 2 games, defensively, they've given up close to 100 points in the last 2 games. And before that, if you look at what they had done, they had been a really, really good defensive unit, one of the best in the entire Big 12. So you kind of see that they're reeling a little bit there. Maybe it was a little bit of fool's gold early on. And, now here comes UCF. And as we kind of expected, and we had kind of said this, don't think UCF was necessarily going to have trouble moving the ball against West Virginia or against Oklahoma. Now, the run game, maybe the numbers will tell you that it wasn't as efficient as you would have liked, 3.6 yards per carry, but they did stick with it. They ran it 41 times out of there. Again, albeit one of them was a long 54-yard run from RJ Harvey. So you got to take that into consideration. But I think based on the West Virginia defense and how it's trending, they've put it out there that you can run on this team. You can absolutely run on this team if you commit to it. So just looking at the game plan going into this one, knowing that John Rice Plumlee is not going to be as mobile, I'd expect another game where UCF tries to commit to it and get at least 40 to 45 run plays if they can have the ball enough against this West Virginia defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at this game from an outside perspective, it's really going to be who can stop the run. Both teams, now granted, again, we look at UCF and they played really well against the run against Oklahoma going up into the 4th quarter. But when you also look at Oklahoma's just running game in general this season, it's one of the lower, teams in the Big 12 when it comes to running.
It doesn't blow you away.
No. So that's why it's like you can listen, anything is a positive after what we've had the last however many weeks. I mean, whenever you get run all over, basically 3 weeks in a row, you really you'll take any positive. Obviously, Nick, you see some of the changes on the defense. Obviously, West Virginia is going to run the football. And just like they know we're going to run the football. I don't know how much John Rice is going to come into a factor. I'm sure. Listen, I don't know if they're going to force him to wear the boot. I don't know what the injury is specifically. If he doesn't come out with the boot, I don't think that's a sign of, he's 100%, going to run all over West Virginia. I do suspect if he wears that boot, they're still going to have design runs just to keep West Virginia on their toes. But from our defense's perspective, Nick, do you keep the defense similar? Obviously, You have a good week against Oklahoma, right? You play the run really well. You change it up on defense. You throw some different things at them. Obviously, you get Ricky Barber back. You kind of switched up for the linebackers. Do you keep that same moxie on defense? Do you keep that same scheme, switching it up? Is that clearly what's working for UCF, so you use it this week? Or do you kind of, switch it up this week? Because obviously West Virginia, after having a bad week of practice, or not practice, but a bad week of game film running the football, will switch it up as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the game plan changes week to week. And what's different into this one, and I can't really recall if UCF has had to face a quarterback like this in regards to Garrett Green, who likes to run the football. And you saw that against Oklahoma State, 16 carries, 117 yards. That's clearly his strength, is getting outside of the pocket at some of these runs. And I don't know if UCF has really seen a quarterback like that this season. If I'm trying to jog my memory right now, I don't think they've really had it, because especially since they avoided having to play Jalen Daniels and they got Bean instead. So we know that they've had struggles, stopping the run in general against any running back for the most part. And they did an okay job, a solid job against Oklahoma. But now you got to deal with the threat coming from the quarterback position. And then, also from, their two-man tandem, whether it's Justin Johnson and CJ Donaldson, it's kind of an even split there with those two guys of what they're going to bring. So, I think, again, you hope that you get the same performance from that linebacking core that you got against Oklahoma. I'm hoping that carries over, because, we did positional groups and, I gave them my grade very low, and I think they honestly deserved it. And coming out in the second half, the first game of the season, that is, shout out Walter Yates, and he had a really, really good game against Oklahoma. I thought Jason Johnson was more noticeable. So I think those two guys are going to be key once again. Obviously, getting Ricky Barber back was huge as well inside the middle. I think that helped. But yes, I think once again, it's going to come down to, can the front seven do their job? Can the front seven do their job and limit those explosives on the ground and make Garrett Green beat you through the air?
You mentioned him. Let's talk about him. Garrett Green. I mean, again, when you look at dual threat in the Big 12, he's right up there. If John Rice was healthy, very similar in what they can do, right? Protects the football. I mean, has, I think, only 2 interceptions on the year, 8 touchdowns. And then you mentioned him running the football. I mean, again, he's their second leading rusher, 61 carries for 349 yards and 5 touchdowns. So, listen, I think if you guys watched the Oklahoma game, you saw that I think what the defense did really well was they did switch it up. They switched up what they were doing basically every play to kind of keep Dillon Gabriel off guard. And again, Oklahoma likes to run a lot of misdirection, get Gabriel kind of out to the right, out to the left to do a lot of RPOs. And to UCF's credit, they took away a lot of the passing options that Dillon Gabriel had. But I think Dillon Gabriel found out later in the game, I'm just going to take off with this because there's nothing open. And Dillon Gabriel got a couple big runs off of that. So, Nick, when you know that UCF did a really good job taking away everything, but kind of leaving that quarterback run open, what needs to be changed this week? Obviously, it's making sure that the linebackers probably necessarily just on a QB spy and not necessarily going after the running back so far out to the boundary. But what does UCF need to do to make sure that Garrett Green doesn't beat, them himself? Because at the end of the day, if Garrett Green goes off, it's going to be a shootout. And with John Rice, again, not 100% healthy, you don't want to get into a shootout like West Virginia, Oklahoma State.
Right. I think clearly, that comes back to how effective you're going to be on offense. I think if you come out, it's going to be home. I know it's a noon game and, noon games can be weird sometimes. But if you can come out hot and kind of take a lead, I mean, look at the Baylor game. I mean, that kind of served as a blueprint. Now, yes, we know what happened. It was a collapse of epic proportions, as we know, but they were able to, get a big lead early. And I think if they're able to come out fast and you can kind of take away West Virginia's running game, again, I just want make Garrett Green beat you. I think as a quarterback, he's very ordinary. You mentioned he doesn't turn over the football, only 2 interceptions on the season, I believe, in this one. But this isn't a precision passer or anything like that that's going to pick you apart. In fact, he hasn't completed over 60% of his passes in any single game this season. That's it. And he's only completed 20 passes once, and that was in the shootout against Houston, where they really needed him to do that. So I think it comes with your offense getting off to a hot start and making them throw a little bit in that game. It comes back to having spies or whatever it is. I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, Dylan Gabriel's not a run first quarterback by any means, but you know, he only killed you on one 14-yard run that entire game. And that was it. Right. And again, he's a completely different quarterback than what you're going to see this Saturday in Green. But I think the blueprint was there for what you can do to kind of mitigate that. And I see no reason to change that.
Listen, West Virginia's defense, I just looked up, is 57th in the country. I mean,
it's inflated by the last two games, no doubt.
Definitely inflated. It's definitely inflated. And listen, at the end of the day, you are what you've done on your schedule. So ultimately, the last 2 weeks, West Virginia has given up a lot of points. I think UCF, again, it's all going to be about confidence in this game. Realistically, it's how confident are you post Oklahoma that you can go out and finish your schedule. I put out a tweet, Nick, because, again, you look at the rest of the schedule, and right now it looks bleak. You're 3-4. You need to win 3 out of your next 5 to be bowl eligible. But I said, listen, you just went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the country. Could potentially be in the college football playoff at the end of the day. Probably not, because, again, the top 4 is just so dominant right now. But if you look at the last 5, you have a West Virginia team that is not easy, but they're beatable. You play like you did against Oklahoma, and tell me if you disagree or agree. You play like you did against Oklahoma. That's the blueprint. You play mistake-free football. No, not a lot of penalties. Clean up the penalties. Mistake-free. No turnovers. And you just play a solid game. Against West Virginia, I think very beatable team. You're at home. You should win that game. Cincinnati. You don't know what kind of Cincinnati team you're getting. You're getting a good defense every week. Offense, kind of scattered. You should go into Cincinnati and win. Oklahoma State, they look really good right now. I don't know if you'd be able to beat Oklahoma State. I think that's a game that kind of 50-50. You're at home. But guess what? You can beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State has proven they're not unbeatable, so you can win that game. Texas Tech, yes, you have to go on the road, but Texas Tech looks really beatable. That's a winnable game. And then Houston. Listen, Houston put up a good fight against Texas, but that's another team where they're not unbeatable. So, Nick, UCF has the opportunity to go 5-0 here. They have a great. Do you agree if you play like you did against Oklahoma, you win out, or do you not believe that team that played Oklahoma can win out with this schedule?
I mean, yeah. Of course, if you play like you did against Oklahoma, I mean, the way they played on that game, how many teams in the nation are going to beat them? I mean, the number as it stands, the number 6 team in the nation had to have a fourth quarter comeback to beat them. So yeah, but again, consistency is the one thing that I think is lacked with this team from a week to week basis. So that's why it's so hard to just handicap that. Is there an opportunity for them to run the table down the stretch and go 5-0 and get to 8-4? Sure, there is. None of these teams, as we've been saying in the Big 12, really blow you away outside of the top 2, right? Everyone else, I think, is beatable on any given Saturday. But do I necessarily trust that UCF is going to find that consistency here late in the season? Not really. And I know we're going to focus on the Oklahoma State game, as it looks like your toughest game down the stretch here. But, don't sleep on the game at the end of the year, because all of a sudden Houston is playing much better football. I mean, you saw they took Texas down to the wire this past weekend. So some of these teams they look a lot better now than they did at the beginning of the year. So yeah, I don't know if I'm banking on the fact that they can go 5-0. I've been saying all along 6-6 has been my magic record for this team. You win this one, you get to 4-4, and then I just need you to find 2 more victories on this schedule. You're going to have that trip to Lubbock too, which we know is not going to be easy either, mixed in there, and then the trip to Cincinnati, which has been a house of horrors lately for UCF, and a defense that is pretty good over there in Cincinnati. So, I still think 6-6 is where I err, and to do that, you'd have to go Now you got to make me do math here.
3-2.
3-2. I think that's very doable. I still think 3-2 is very doable, but 5-0, I think that might be pushing it a little bit right now.
Listen, if you're right, and I think if you're a player in the locker room, and I'm sure the coaching staff has pushed this, is saying like, listen, we're 3-4 now, but you just almost be one of the best teams in the country. You've got 5 very winnable games. If you play like you did, you can be 8-4, which anybody in the country, if you said UCF would be 8-4 in the first season of the Big 12, would be like, watch out for UCF. So I agree with you. I mean, I said I was about 7-5, 8-4 into the season. If they go 3-2 these last 5 games, I think we would all be rejoicing. We get a bowl game. I saw one of the projected bowl games would be UCF versus Auburn. I would, in the Gasparilla Bowl, I'd be heading down to Tampa. We'd be buying a...
People think Auburn's going to win 6 games?
Well, it was the Action Network's, bowl game prediction was UCF versus Auburn and Gasparilla Bowl. So people are still predicting us to win 6 games. So it's like...
The Gasparilla again, huh?
I mean, I'll take it at this. We'll take that would be just the storylines right itself. I mean, that'd be great. But no, I agree. I mean, ultimately, you have to go one game at a time, but you can also look at it and be like, listen, we had a really tough stretch at the beginning of the year, which we all talked about, Nick. We said the first 5 games, four games of the Big 12 are going to be rough. Like the Baylor one was the only like one that you could really look at and say, that's a really good chance at a win. The rest, you're like, probably a loss or a toss-up. These next 5 are the ones that you're saying you're about 50-50. If you play like you did, or you play a good fundamental game of football, you're more talented. You should win. You're at home 3 of the last 5. One that you have to go on the road, you've played at multiple years. Like you went to Cincinnati for years.
A lot of it too depends on how healthy can John Rice Plumlee continue to get while playing is kind of the
Probably
big thing. The big thing here. I mean, did he have a great game against Oklahoma? No. I thought he had a solid game. And in the big moments, I thought he made some really, really good throws. Okay? So
Will you agree with me on this? Can you pick out 5 to 10 throws from that Oklahoma game and find those same 5 to 10 throws last year?
I probably can't tell you that, no. Like I go back to the throw he made on that 4th down to Randy Pittman. That was an elite throw. That's an elite throw.
The touchdown throw, 4th and 10 to Javon Baker, that on the right side.
Right.
To get 6 points.
That's a big time throw. Like but my point with John Rice Plumlee, like I thought he had a solid, good game is what I'll call it against Oklahoma. But what sets him apart again is that running ability and what he brings to the offense. I think that's what takes the offense to a next level. As I've been saying, is if John Rice Plumlee can run the football a little bit. So how healthy can he get while playing, I think is the big question. Because if John Rice Plumlee, it was truly 100% healthy in that Oklahoma game, and I mean like he can run, no limitations, things like that, you know what? They probably win that football game. Sean, would you agree?
I actually said on the live stream, I said, I hate that I'm having to think how this game would have turned out if John Rice could actually run the football. Because I actually think it wouldn't have been a question if UCF wins that game or not.
Yeah, based on the way that they were able to do that with him not being able to run and him having to, as I've been saying, stand and bang back there and throw. I mean, the fact that they had it that close is a miracle in itself. So, if he plays in that game and he's 100% healthy and can run, I think perhaps they win that game. But I think that's my thing going forward here is if they get into some of these shootouts with these teams, can he continue to do this without being much of a factor with his feet? I think that's really going to be the big storyline here of how many wins they can pick up here in this final 5 games.
100%. And I think we're really going to find out how much of his pocket presence has improved. I will say there were some times on Saturday it looked like a completely different quarterback from last year. And I know you have to go week by week. He can come out on Saturday and put up a stinker performance, but I'll say what he did on Saturday was very impressive. And again, it's not just on Saturday, it was against Boise too. So you take what you can and you hope that he can get healthier. You hope that the knee can get, better as the weeks go on. I don't know how much he's practicing, Nick. I'm going to be honest. If I'm the coaching staff, I'm just putting him in a walkthrough. I wouldn't be throwing him out there Sunday to Thursday, especially when you're trying to get his knee healthier and where he can run some plays instead of just having to pass all the time. But it'll be interesting. Let's go into our predictions. This is a weird one. I mean, I think it is literally for me a 50-50 split here. I could totally see West Virginia coming out and stopping us pretty decently. But I can also see UCF just having the upper hand the entire game. Do you have I know UCF was favored by 6.5, I think, which I still think is way too much. I understand having a home game adds 3 points to any spread. So realistically, it's about a 3.5 point UCF favorite spread. But kind of what's your take on the game? What's your score prediction for this Saturday?
You said what was the spread again?
6.5.
That's so funny because my score prediction, as I've been developing it, I do have UCF winning this game. Not by a large margin or anything like that. Again, it's really a coin toss for me, but I'm giving them the edge slightly, and I had 37-31. So 6.5, they're going to be right on the brink of that. Is kind of how I'm feeling right now. Yeah, but I think that ultimately they're gonna prevail in this one. I do, but I do think West Virginia. I mean, I'm projecting to score 31 points. I mean, they were able to put up points on Houston. They were able to put up points on Oklahoma State. The UCF defense, it's not like it's substantially better, or I don't even know if it is, than Houston or Oklahoma State, to be honest with you. So I think that Green's going to have success on the ground if he wants it. That's still a big test for this team, how they're going to fare with a running quarterback. But I do think UCF's offense can move the ball against anybody. It's just a matter of when they get down into the red zone, can they punch it in? I think that's kind of the big thing here. But if they do that, I think they make their way out of this game, and I think 37-31, and we stop this 4-game losing streak finally and get back to 500.
Yeah, this is, in my opinion, I know I've said this a couple times, but this is probably the most important game, regardless of if you win or I get there's another 4 games after this, but this is the most important game of the season up to date. You either go 2 games under 500 or you go right at 500 with 4 games left. It's a big game. I think the players have a lot more confidence. You have to hope that there is a different feeling in the building after last Saturday. I think there is. I think some of the changes that Gus and staff made, especially on the defensive side of the football, really has impacted what can happen in the future. Play DeCorian Patterson more at cornerback because I really like how he played. Of course, we don't have the same score prediction. Very similar, though. I do have West Virginia putting up 31 points. I think 31 is a solid number. That'd be better defensively than both Houston and Oklahoma State, which, if that's the case, I think we'll be pretty happy and satisfied going into those 2 games. But I think I'm going to say UCF 35 and West Virginia 31. I think UCF puts up 5 touchdowns. But that's, like you said, it's ultimately going to come to, are you putting up field goals or are you putting up touchdowns? UCF has moved the ball on every single team that they've played. It has not been a problem getting yards and moving the football. It's, can you finish in the red area? And to UCF's credit, against Oklahoma, they finished in the red area a couple times there. But there's also times they had to kick field goals. So it's again, if you can't finish in the red area, you will not win in college football, and you definitely will not win in the Big 12, which is, again, a coin flip every week. So I'm going to say 35-31, but this is I get must-wins, and you can throw out must-wins whenever, but this is a clear-cut must-win.
It is, because you don't want to be put in a situation where the final 4 games, you got to go out and win 3. I mean, and if you can't beat this West Virginia team at home, then I might have to start saying that 6-6 might be off the table. Like, just plain and simple. Like, I don't know how you can do a 5-game losing streak and then somehow win 3 of your last 4, having to go on the road in Lubbock, having to play Oklahoma State, who is charging right now, and then a scrappy Houston team, and then a Cincinnati game. It's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. That's why I've been saying that all the time. I don't think that's a shoo-in like a lot of people think. So having to take 3 or 4 after that, if you lose this one, tall task. very tall task. So you've got to win this game. You have to win this. I agree. This to this point, this is the biggest game of the season.
And again, I get West Virginia's 4-3. They should be 5-2. They should be 5-2. So you have this is not a easy win for UCF in the slightest. I get you're at home. Yeah. It's a new kickoff. This is going to be a tough team.
You still haven't won a Big 12 game. I mean,
yeah, you're on 4.
It's still out there. So it's on one hand, it's I can keep saying oh, I think they're going to win this game. And, I'm not that impressed by West Virginia. But at the same time, you haven't won a Big 12 game yet. So it's the other hand of that. It's until you do it, how can I trust you? They'll
just have to go prove it. I mean, we'll see. Was Oklahoma a fluke? Was it UCF Super Bowl and they just woke up for that game? Or are they going to play like they did against Baylor or even Kansas State, where you come out and you look really good and then crumble in the fourth quarter? We'll see. All right, guys. Before we go, I announced this a little bit on the the live stream. We'll see if everything goes well. There's a little bit of nervous energy for me to make sure that this all goes well. We will be doing a pregame live stream at 9:30. So come out if you made it this far in the pod. Thank you. But definitely come on out. We will be right kind of near the stage, the pregame stage where Shaq will be, putting on his set, and we'll be handing out and doing wallet giveaways, some Charge On merch, which I'll be finding out today if that's done. But we'll be giving that away. And you just can come by the tent. You can hop on the show and give your take on the game, on the team, whatever. We'll be out there for about an hour and a half. So come on out, and we should be easy to find. We'll be on the walkway where you see all the white tents. We'll be right on that walkway where you'll see us kind of doing our thing. So definitely come on out and say hi. Hopefully, again, we'll hopefully be broadcasting live to our YouTube. We'll see if Wi-Fi presents. If not, we might just be doing a free show, on the right next to the tents. I hope that's not the case, but we will see what happens. But definitely come on out and say hi. Nick, any final thoughts before we head to a pregame live stream on Saturday?
It'll be an early morning on there on Saturday.
Earlier for you than me.
I know. I got to drive from Tampa over Orlando early in the morning and get all settled in before we go live. And DJ Diesel apparently is going to show up too. I don't know why I'm so skeptic that he's going to be on time. I've heard stories before of Shaq.
I hope he's not.
I remember, I'm a NASCAR guy, and he was planned for a race they had at, I think it might have been Sonoma or whatever, a couple months ago. And he was supposed to DJ before the game, and something happened. He didn't make it on time, and he got there at the end of the race, and he had to do a set after the race. So I've heard stories before of Shaq not exactly getting there at on time, and I hope, because he's supposed to go on at 10:15 or something, right? From what I hear.
Yeah, and he lives here.
But that's true. Here. He does live here. So
that should make it easy.
So hopefully we get DJ Diesel. I mean, I saw the crowd for Pauly D when we were up there, when I was up there last for that Baylor game, and it was packed. So I have to think, willing that everybody is still on board with the team and is going to show up for this nooner against West Virginia. Again, that's a big key here. Yeah. Assuming that happens, I think it's going to be a good atmosphere, and we're going to have a lot of people down there for that. Hopefully people come by to say hello to us as we, talk about this game a little bit and some other things leading up to it. And hopefully we get a dub. I'm tired of losing. I'm tired of losing, Sean.
Yeah, I'm tired of it too. We haven't talked about a win in a month. So I'd rather come on a pod and talk about a win than just talking about constant L's.
Have we had a home game since that Baylor game? Have I missed?
No.
That's been the last one, right?
It's been a month. So technically more than a month.
How different things were the last time this team was at home.
Yep. And that's why I've not talked about the crowd, and we won't talk about it, because I just hope and pray that everybody comes out and does what they're supposed to and, cheers on your team regardless of what their record is. Because who knows, at the end of the year, you could be 8-4, and then you'll regret not going to see the 3-4 team. But I digress. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please like, subscribe, share, comment, do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Please come on out to the live stream. Again, we'll be right outside the stadium. Hopefully everything goes well so that you can watch it from home, but if not, we will be doing some form of a pregame talk right kind of by the near the Coke tent. When you walk near the stadium, we'll be giving out a bunch of free stuff, so please stop on by. All right, guys, this has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you on Sunday.